out. Get ready for the nerd out. Better put specs on. Better break necks on. I caught handsome checks for my expansion sets.
What's going on, Comic Fam? It is your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and this is our first ever episode of doing a comic creator corner, or a comic creator chat, if you will. And I am honored to have on as my first ever guest, Rylan Grant.
What's up, guys? Hi.
Rylan, you've created a couple great books. I reached out to you on Instagram after I saw you were doing a panel on the Mainframe Comic Con a couple weekends ago, and you were talking about one of your books, Banjack, and I was like, I gotta check that out. So I read that, I crushed through it in a night, I think, and then I picked up a Baron and crushed through that in 2 days. So
couldn't have been that bad then.
I'm excited to have you on and just kind of pick your brain about some stuff. So first, I just wanted to ask, how did you get into comic creating?
Oh yeah, comic creating. God, all right. How do I not make this an hour-long story? Give me a second. I have for about at least a dozen years now. I feel like I've been saying a dozen years for a couple of years, so it's probably 15 years. I've been a working screenwriter in Hollywood. So my day job is I get paid to write kind of big poppy action movies for, I've written for Ridley Scott and J.J. Abrams and John Woo and Luc Besson and, a bunch of people like that. Comics were always my first love. I actually tried to do the comic thing back in college, but kind of fell on my face with it. It was a lot harder back then to do it. So, I mean, you basically had to all the drawings were physical.
Yeah.
You basically had to know an artist, and this is before social media and all that crap. So you basically had to, I'm gonna take this out, having a hard time hearing myself. You basically had to know an artist in your town. Revisions were a pain in the ass because, okay, you're dealing with the physical drawing, change that and that, and then, fucking they disappear for 2-3 days. And then how do you find a colorist? How do you find a letterer? How do you put a book together? It was, it was almost like magic back then.
Right.
So I sort of tried and failed. What has happened over the last 5 years is that it's gotten I don't want to say it's easy, because it's, making your book is never easy. It's it's kind of a kick to the balls every day, but ultimately ends up very rewarding when you're holding your your book in your hand. But yeah, it's gotten a whole lot easier. It's gotten a whole lot more simple. It's never been more possible to make your book than it is right now. And so a couple of things happen. I mean, first of all, all the workflow is digital now. Most of the artists I work with, they haven't drawn on paper in years,
Right.
They do everything on a fucking tablet this size, and all the files are treated via Dropbox, and revisions are very simple and very easy. The other thing that happened is, there's been this kind of social media revolution, and that's not new. But what is new, fairly new, is that there are these massive communities of creators now. The first group I found it's on Facebook. It's called something along the lines of Connecting Comic Book Writers and Artists.
Okay.
And I think it has north of 26,000 members right now. And all people who are making books or looking to make books. And really what it is it's kind of like an artist gallery. It's one artist after another, and some of them are bad and some of them are good and some of them are fucking fantastic, and it's all over the map. But just a gallery of artists being like, hey, this is my work, this is my page rate, somebody hire me, please. And so that didn't exist even 5 years ago. And so now you want to make your book, you write your script, and you go and you find one of these groups and you put out an APB, or you trip over an artist you like, and you start talking via direct message, and you got a stew going.
Right.
So yeah, that was so my first book was Aberrant. Like you were talking about, Aberrant is kind of it is a love letter to 70s paranoid spy thrillers. Kind of like uh, 3 Days of the Condor or Marathon Man, so something like
Right.
that. They've done a few in recent years. Like Tony Scott did a film called Enemy of the State.
Yeah.
That's kind of in that wheelhouse, which is an incredible and sort of criminally underrated film. Uh, Tony Gilroy did Michael Clayton, which is another one that's really fucking awesome. And so this is kind of like Michael Clayton with a superhero or something like that.
Reading that, I can see that now that you say that, because yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, very much a love letter to those things. And so that was my first book, and so so sort of started off with that, and kept going and kept going. And so that was very well received by the critics. And then I won a Ringo Award last year for it. The Ringo Awards for the uninitiated are kind of like the Golden Globes of comic book awards. If
Yeah.
Eisner's are the Oscars, then Ringo's are the. And so yeah, I won a Ringo Award for Best Villain. I was nominated for 2 others: Best Single Issue for issue 4, and then Best Writer. And that Best Writer category was absurd. It's like me and Bendis and Brian K. Vaughan and Scott yeah, it was just it was absurd. It was like it was like me and 4 first ballot Hall of Famers. Just so anyway, so yeah, cut to a few years later after Aberrant, and I've had Bam Jacks come out, which is very well received, and then I have like 4 or 5 other books in the pipe, and so now I have artists working for me in Hungary, in Brazil, in Mexico, in Portugal. My go-to colorist is in Indonesia. My letterer is in the UK. I pay them all via PayPal. We communicate almost exclusively, via email. A lot of translation apps happening.
Yeah.
And all the files are traded via Dropbox and everything. And so so now I'm full force. I'm like in the deep end with this stuff, and so love every second of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask you about how you pick your, creators to come alongside you and journey into those, and it sounds like you're worldwide with it, with who's a part of your books.
Yeah, I mean, it's it is a dance. I mean, I've been lucky, and usually when I find somebody it takes a lot of work to find somebody who moves at your pace and who you can kind of jive with. It's like I don't know, it ends up being kind of like a marriage or something like that. It's
Right.
like, you got to do a little dating before you settle down with somebody. And so, I've been really lucky. And usually when I work with somebody, it becomes a sort of, lifelong or years long partnership. The Aberrant was drawn by the issue 1 of Aberrant was drawn by a Hungarian artist named John Borhuska. And I mean, the art there was just stellar. And he would have drawn, Aberrant went for 10 issues. The plan was to have him draw everything, but I ended up having to move him over to, there was an animated film that you can see a lot of on YouTube called Orient City,
Okay.
which is kind of like a samurai Western mashup that's pretty bonkers.
Nice.
And John Burr always wanted to be an animator, so I wrote and produced an animated film that he did, and so now he's in the movie game.
That's awesome.
And so he had to move over, and so I found this Brazilian artist named Davi Leon Diaz who took over for issues 2 through 10, and Davi's Davi is just as steady as they come, and his art is great and interesting, and Davi was the guy that drew the issue 4 that got nominated for best single issue and all that stuff, and who kind of like was the guy who gave birth to the villain that won best villain and all that stuff. And Davi and I, I'm trying to get the count because see, I have these books now. I had 2 books that were pretty far along and scheduled and set to be announced by kind of bigger publishers, but then all this COVID shit hit,
Right.
and these pencils down happened. Now they're in doubt or on indefinite hold and all that stuff. And so so I have 5 books in the pipe, 5 other titles that nobody's seen or basically heard from. Some of them I can't even talk about. So I'm trying to figure out. I think Davi and I have done. Oh God, yeah. I mean, if you count some other things, I think Davi and I have done 4 books together.
Okay.
And so, and then, my collaborator on Banjax is, another Brazilian artist named Fabio Alves, who, I mean, Fabio's art on Banjax is absurd. And
Great.
yeah, and if he doesn't get nominated for a Ringo this year, then it's going to be criminal. But, kind of like Banjax is a, God, it's like if Michael Mann directed a superhero movie. It's kind of Death Wish with the superhero, like this,
Yeah.
uh, superhero finds out he has terminal, a disgraced former superhero, I should say, finds out he has terminal cancer caused by using his powers. Defending what he has deemed an ungrateful and unworthy city is literally killing him. He takes a look at the city, which is still a cesspool, takes a long look at his legacy, decides he's not going out like that. And so he's got 3 months left to live. He decides he's going to clean up the city at all costs. And so it's a bat out of hell, like fucking bullet train sort of story.
It was great. I couldn't put it down.
Yeah. So Fabio really shined there. And so Fabio and I are, Fabio and I have another book going, which is, actually we'll talk about it later, obviously, but Fabio drew the Kickstarter book that I'll talk about later. And so, so long-winded way of saying, these things kind of become like, it takes so long to find an artist who gets it. I mean, it's like, I would say I have to audition 3 or 4 artists before I really find one that sticks on something, unfortunately. And so you find a guy and you kind of get each other's dance moves down and you learn each other's rhythms and you learn how to communicate, particularly when you're talking about like, somebody where there's a language difference and all that stuff. Because that can be a difficult dance. And so once you've kind of cracked the code with somebody, you got to stick with them, So,
yeah. No, it makes sense. Well, which leads me to my question. I was going to talk to you, 2 books you've just been referencing there. I was going to ask you about, I noticed like some of your variant covers for the books, as well as some panels in the books. There's a lot of nods to pop culture references kind of thrown out there. Like, and I was wondering, like, is that an artist decision or is that you as the creator, as the writer, like coming up with the idea of throwing Cheers, watching a news report?
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% me. I mean, it's how I kind of it's how I entertain myself.
Right.
I mean, it's the beauty of this stuff. I mean, it's here's the thing is like there is a huge variant cover market right now. I mean, it's like they kind of they make the whole market go right now. And so Action Lab was very adamant about us having variant covers for these books. And so whatever I could do some random, pinup or some, the hero going like this or something like that, like everyone else does, but it's just not how I roll. It's like, if I'm gonna, if I'm gonna lay it down, then I'm gonna lay it down. And so I keep turning here because, it's my wall of my comics. And so all of my, I'm trying to see what, which I've done, but, so it's like, I'm just a huge TV movie goon. And so, whenever they make me do a variant cover, I really kind of go balls out with it. And so, it was like the first Aberrant cover we did. The first Aberrant cover is the Billy D. Williams Colt 45 cover. Right. That's Aberrant #1 variant. And then we, for issue 1, we did a Coming to America variant. Issue 4, we did the Wire variant for Baltimore Comic Con. We did 2 Karate Kid variants, a Karate Kid 1 variant, a Karate Kid 2 variant. We did a Point Break variant. We did a Top Gun Playing with the Boys volleyball scene variant. I'm trying to, I have so many of them.
Right.
Yeah, Banjax, we've done fewer quirky variants, but we did a Rocky 4 variant for Baltimore Comic Con, which was amazing. And then we did a Gremlins variant for San Diego Comic Con, which is like pretty crazy sought after. But yeah, it's like, you end up in a scene and it's like, okay, well, sitting there writing it and it's like, okay, well, I need a bar scene. And it's like, and my scripts end up very detailed. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I can just tell them write a bar, but it's like, but usually I want things to have a certain feel. You never know what you're going to get if you're like, okay, it takes place in a bar. Sometimes it can be that simple. However, like, think about all the bars you've ever been to in your life. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
so different. It could be a completely different vibe from what you want or envision.
who knows what a guy in Brazil is going to like search for on the internet and find a reference to, you end up with like fucking, who knows? I mean, like I don't even know, but
Yeah.
usually, yeah, a lot of visual references. So sometimes I'll just mess with myself and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to literally set an entire issue in this bar. And so, I'm the biggest fucking Cheers fan on the planet. And so it's like, okay, well, yeah. And while we're at it, why don't we put Sam Malone behind the bar, and why don't we, and so it's subtle. I mean, it doesn't become part of the story.
Yeah,
It's
no.
just,
I mean, and it's one of those, because it seems like they're in panels like where they're quick read panels. So if you aren't paying attention, or if you're not familiar with Cheers for some reason, like you might glance over and miss it. So no, I appreciated that. For
yeah,
sure.
and I go pretty crazy with the t-shirts and stuff like that. I mean, I think like, I think in the scene you're talking about, you walk in and like the guy right at the table, right by the door, is wearing a WKRP t-shirt. And,
Right.
I mean, it's just, it's fun. I use it to amuse myself, but it's like, there's also like a power in marketing. I mean, I've noticed the power of these things, at cons. So you're at a con table, and tabling at a con fucking sucks. You know what I'm saying? It just sucks. Like,
I've been to cons as a kid, so I get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't do it a lot, mostly because I'm too busy and interesting. I say that with some irony, but I just hate doing it more than anything. But sometimes it's like, sometimes the con calls you and it's like, hey, we want you to be a guest, and you'll be a headliner, and we're going to give you a free table. And so it's like you kind of have no choice but to do it, and you got to do a little bit of it anyway. And I should do more of it actually, because it makes a big difference. And I mean, I love meeting actual fans, but it's like most of it is like you're waiting a couple of hours between like good conversations,
Yeah.
But really, it's like you watch people who are good at it, and they're like begging people to come to their table, and anybody who passes by they want to ignore you. They don't want to have a conversation. They don't want to get like talked into buying something, and so it's head down. They're trying to get by. And you have to be like, hey, hey, do you like action movies? Hey, do you like action movies? Hey, do you like action movies? And it sucks. The power of these covers is you got a guy walking by, and he's trying not to look at you, but then out of the corner of his eye he sees like Elf on a cover,
Right.
or he sees Apollo Creed on a cover, and he's like, wait a minute, is that, and then he fucking got him. It's
Then you're like,
they're like these
gotcha.
tractor beams that go out and pull people in, and that's
Bring it in.
yeah, and yeah, and rather than you being like, hey, do you want to know what my book is about? It's like, dude, what's your book about? Why is Ivan Drago on the cover?
Right. It initiates them making the conversation because they're curious, and then you don't have to like beg like, hey, come read. Let me tell you about what I'm working on and stuff. Like it draws you let the book bring them in, which is brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm in the office that I write in right now, and you can see all my all the fucking craziness that I have lying around. So I'm a big pop culture like fiend. So my fucking toys and everything. It's just so it's how I amuse myself. I mean, it's kind of the thing. I mean, sort of touching on the question that you asked before, like how do you end up going from like this movie career to this comic career? It's like and whatever, I'm still doing the movie stuff. I don't want to act like I left or anything. That's what still pays the bills. But I mean, it happened a few years back where it's like Hollywood got so limited. Like they basically make like 3 or 4 different kinds of films right now. And they what you can do in Hollywood, you can literally fit on a fucking postage stamp right now. They and they want them written a certain way, and it kind of sucks, and it's like I got really good at writing those movies. I can fucking phone them in. I mean, they paid for my house. And I don't want to be an idiot sitting here like being the guy who's like complaining about writing fucking movies for a living, because there are a lot of people that would like murder me to like switch places with me. But it's like I got kind of bored with it, and I got kind of tired of it, and I had kind of like an existential career crisis a few years back, and that was really what kind of precipitated me kind of moving into comics. Is like, so the beauty of comics is like you can do anything any way you want to, as long as it's entertaining, as long as like the readers like it. Yeah, I mean, as long as it's good. And so when I got into comics, and if you just power through both these books, I mean, you saw it in action. It's like I mean, I made the promise to myself that I would never tell a straightforward story, and so I doubled down on all these things like experimental elements, uh, playing with point of view and structure, telling the story out of order, unreliable narrators, all of that stuff.
Yeah, and
Um,
yeah, because I was going to ask you about that. Like
yeah.
the since you kind of brought it up, I know in Banjax, it was what really intrigued me in the first issue, and then I saw it translate into the second and third. It was a very narrator focused story within the rotating of the narrator, especially that first issue. It felt like it was what's his, Mason, right? What's his name? The main
Yeah, Mason.
Mason.
Yeah,
Kind of narrating, and then Rain's doing it the next.
yeah,
And stuff.
Mason. Yeah.
And was that kind of like just your creative process, like you were saying, of you just didn't want to write a straightforward story? Is that kind of where you went with flipping the narrations and stuff, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I find myself drawn to narration. I mean, it's it can be done poorly, but it can be done very well too. You look at Watchmen or something like
Right.
that. I mean, there's something about being inside the character's head, and I think that was very important for Banjax because I mean, for the uninitiated, Banjax is a two-hander. So you have Mason, who's like the Death Wish hero, and then there was this other side of the story. The other side of the coin is that his protege, kind of the Robin to his Batman, um, is kind of tasked with bringing his old mentor in. The problem is like he's not remotely up to it. I mean, it's like he's sort of in the years since Mason was disgraced, he's become kind of the public's point and wink superhero ideal, and he's more of like a superstar, like a personality, a social influencer than like a superhero anymore. And he has people do his work for him, but now he's the one who's called upon to do this. And so it is about these two people, and it's about kind of the fall of this hero and the rise of this other one, and how they kind of inform each other. And so the odd issues are told from Mason's point of view. The even issues are told from his protege's point of view. This guy Rains, and so what you get with the first two issues is you basically get I mean, they cover some different ground, but you basically get the same story, but you get two very different versions of the same story.
Right.
You're getting and it's kind of like there's a Rashomon situation going on, or Showtime does this with The Affair, where it's like you see two very slanted views on a certain event, and no one is telling the full truth.
Right.
And so this guy says it happened this way, this guy says it happened another way, and in the end, you're not given a definitive answer. You are left as the reader to like figure out, well, what do I believe and what actually happened here, which I think is an amazing dance. And so I think so I think that with the narration ended up kind of being like necessary in that these guys are sitting down and telling you the story, right? And then of course as the series progresses, I mean, we still use it, but it's not leaned on as heavily, and it becomes more of a an action play and that sort of thing. So a chess match between these two guys. So yeah,
you're right. The first two issues, it seems like it leaned heavily, and then like you said, it starts to kind of just kind of play along as a support to the story more, and lets the dialogue of the other characters. And which also then a notice which I really liked is you incorporated songs throughout your throughout your book, which I thought was really cool, because it was, I mean, it's a soundtrack for your comic. Like,
so I come from a filmmaking background. I mean, screenwriter for, let me get rid of this. Sorry, the gum's not going to work. A screenwriter for 15 years, but I also I mean, for whatever it's worth, I have a master's degree in film directing from the American Film Institute Conservatory, which is where David Lynch went, and million other great filmmakers. So so I treat each one of these comic issues as like a short film that I'm directing. And in fact, if you look inside, I don't know if you noticed it, but I give myself a writer director credit on all these things, which pisses some comic people off, but they can go fuck themselves. I don't care. And so I'm directing these little movies, and so I wanted Aberrant. Aberrant is kind of I mean, it is a love letter to these 70s, paranoid spy thrillers, but it also has like an 80s action movie feel to it. It has that kind of swagger. And so I wanted this thing to feel filmic from moment one. And so, yeah, issue 1 of Aberrant has, I don't know if it's 3 songs or 4 songs in it. And so right off the bat, you just kind of hear the sound, I mean, the music is actually lettered. And so it kind of carries you through. And so you're hearing these music cues in your head. Yeah, and it has a really interesting effect. And I hadn't seen it done in comics, and
Oh,
I sort of learned why. I learned why soon. I mean, I think it's very effective. However, it's very costly, and it is a massive pain in the ass to get the music cleared. Like, you're dealing with somebody's IP, right? So
yeah.
like you actually have to go and get the lyrics. You have to go and get permission and pay to actually use the lyrics in your. And so I kind of got hosed. Like I had friends who had like printed some lyrics in some books. And when they did it, it was like $50 or something like that to clear a song or something like that. And so when I started Aberrant, I was coming from that place. But by the time I got done with Aberrant and actually, had to like apply for the clearances, the main clearinghouse that handled all of the music, they decided that those $50 clearances were no longer worth their time and their effort. And so they jacked the minimum clearance up to like $300 a song or something like that. And so my song budget ended up kind of through the roof, and so I had to cut some, and that kind of sucked. The other thing is like, well, a lot of songs, like one guy wrote it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Don't worry, be happy. You're dealing with Bobby McFerrin, and that's it. Some songs were written by like 3 or 4 people. Right. And so what I found is like, you might get, the main clearinghouse may rep 2 of those people, but the third piece of the puzzle is held by, some fucking lunatic who's living in a fucking, shed in Montana somewhere. He mess with you,
Right.
And so learned all that stuff the hard way. So there's a reason people don't do it, and because of that, I kind of haven't done it since. But yeah, it's helped me because I mean, part of what you want to do with any of this stuff. I mean, comics are my first love, and that's really what it's about. But I mean, like anybody, I would like this stuff to be. I mean, I'm a screenwriter by trade, and so I would like this stuff to be set up, in Hollywood eventually. And so, Aberrant was very quickly set up as a TV show in Hollywood. Tony Krantz, who was the guy who was the executive producer on 24 and Felicity,
Okay.
and a number of other things. Yeah, he optioned Aberrant as a TV series. I think it was 2 weeks before the second issue hit comic shops. So, and so we're developing that now and building that out. And obviously that has encountered some bumps with this COVID stuff going on,
Yeah.
but which sucks. But I met with a lot of people on it, and Krantz's people in particular were like, well, it just it felt like a TV series immediately. It just felt like I was watching something on a screen,
Yep. Yeah.
And Aberrant is 10 issues, and so when you read it, you feel like you've watched a season of a Netflix show, and so
Right.
it worked very well for that. It was like, okay, well, this just felt film, like it felt like a TV show. So
And I mean, the world you create too, there's so much potential in there. And I mean, you see a little bit of tying into that world with Banjax as well, through the Zap and some of that stuff, like this kind of overarching universe, it feels like.
yeah, that was yeah, I mean, it's funny. There's definitely a way to look at it where both books take place in the same
Right.
the same universe. I don't know if I can officially say that they do or don't for IP reasons.
Gotcha.
Yeah. However, I just thought it was it was. I mean, I was sitting down, I was making these books, and it's like, I mean, it seems like both stories do take place in the same universe. So I might as well have some very subtle ties. I mean, it's like I think at that point too, it's like, I mean, I'm really interested in the way that they built the Marvel Cinematic Universe and built this bridge between their TV properties and their movie properties. You know, it was always interesting to watch, like, whatever the Iron Man movie comes out, and then the events of the Iron Man movie really affect how the next 12 episodes of Agents of Shield go.
Right.
And then and then like those 12 episodes of Agents of Shield kind of lead you up to the new Thor movie, and then the Thor,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
something huge happens in the Thor movie, and so that was just always very interesting. And it's like, it's not always direct, but it's like, I mean, you look at that first season of Daredevil, and it was mostly about, okay, well, there was this alien invasion in New York, and a big hole was ripped in New York, and so what is actually happening, like, on the streets and in the real estate market and all that stuff. And it was like, the Avengers aren't popping up in that show, but it's like, the ripples in the pond
Right.
yeah,
It affects it, like what they do, with
yeah,
the destruction in the Spider-Man movie, that the cleanup from, they're cleaning up from the Avengers and stuff. So again, like,
yeah.
they're not popping in. And so, well, why don't when I reached out to you I was like, hey, let's talk about these books. And then you said, yes, but I have something on the docket that is coming out, and it's
always a
actually
but.
dropping today via Kickstarter. So why don't we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the new book is dropping via Kickstarter again. I mean, you heard me kind of complain about how, I mean, the comic business has kind of like, God, I'm trying not to get in trouble with the words that I use, but things are at a standstill now. It's a very difficult time for everybody, for comic shops, for publishers, for retailers, and I've had not just me, but all of us creators are really struggling to kind of get books seen and whatnot. And so when you have all these books kind of ready to go, what the hell do you do with them?
Right.
And lucky for us, there is this beautiful institution called Kickstarter, where a lot of people think Kickstarter is about money and whatever, money's good and everything. But really, Kickstarter is like, if you look at the numbers, Kickstarter is the biggest publisher of comics in the universe right now. And there's a huge, rabid, enthusiastic fan base there. And so, you have these people who can't go to their comic shops and get what they need right now. Of course, that's starting to kind of restart, and you should absolutely go to your comic shops and get your stuff. But we're having to kind of fight the battle on all fronts now. And so I have for years flirted with doing a Kickstarter. I'm in a cool position where I run a lot of panels at Comic Cons. I kind of have an open invitation from most of them to kind of do what I want. And
Yeah.
so if there's something I don't understand or that I'm not good at, what I tend to do is I will get 5 people who are the best at it, and I will get them up in front of 200 people at a Comic Con panel, and I'll ask them questions. And so I have over the past 2 years done probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 Kickstarter panels where I was just trying to figure out how to do it.
Taking notes.
Yeah, and so I learned from the best. I had probably all told about 20 Mr. Miyagi's, people who have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars on there. And so I learned from the best. And so long-winded way of saying I'm doing my first Kickstarter now. It's for a book called The Jump, which as I said is drawn by Fabio Alves, who did the art for Banjax.
Right.
But it's actually the entire team back from Banjax.
Okay.
So same colorist, same letterer.
Wow.
This is our second dance, our second go round, and the art's even better this go round. And so so The Jump is a thriller that takes place in the world of astral projection. It's kind of crazy, and so yeah, it's about this guy Thomas who sort of after kind of a series of personal tragedies, he sort of he finds finds support. He sort of takes solace in this online group of people who are exploring astral projection, and he sort of proves to be kind of the Neo of this world. He shows an affinity for it.
Yeah.
He shows a skill set, and so he becomes very kind of sought after. And so the twist ends up being that there are these kind of warring factions on the astral plane, trying to carve it up as a bit of real estate, and so he ends up kind of being a pawn, and then a rook, and then a king, and the chess match that's going on the astral plane. And so, yeah, pretty full of meaty twists and turns, and good high concept sci-fi action, and yeah, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, you were gracious enough to let me look at a couple of the pages that are coming up, and it looks great. The art, like you said, the art looks top notch, and it seems like it's going to be one of those that just captures you of like what's happening, what's going next, and kind of that game that they're playing. So where did you come about with this idea of kind of taking place in this astral plane?
Yeah, well, that's a funny one because you talk about these partnerships that get built out over years, and so Fabio and I, the artist on Banjax, we did Banjax, and I was just I'm in love with the work he did, and I have plenty of books that are my books, and I could say to Fabio, hey, go draw this, and in fact, Fabio and I have other stuff going on where I did that, but the jump came from him. Fabio is actually Fabio is involved in this world of astral projection. There's this online community of practitioners, and he has a mentor and all these things. So Fabio actually does this stuff. And so Fabio has firsthand knowledge, and he was able to introduce me to this whole community of people who have this firsthand knowledge. And so Fabio didn't come to me with, hey, this is our story. Fabio said, hey, here's this world, and here are some thematics that I'm interested in, and all these things.
Yeah.
And so, again, like I can say, hey, Fabio, draw this, but I think the more powerful thing with any artist and how you keep them happy and engaged is, hey, Fabio, what do you want to draw? And he said, I want to draw something in this world. And so he brought that reality, and he brought this interesting world. And I thought it was great because it's like, there's so few worlds now that you haven't seen before. And I was racking my brain, and I'm like, well, in comics and movies and TV and anything, I haven't seen this. So then my job was, okay, well, how do I set like a Hollywood worthy, a like image worthy, high concept sci-fi thriller in this world? And again, I write action movies for a living, and so I came and I brought my heat to it, and so yeah, it was kind of the perfect marriage of those two things. And so as we kind of move along and as the story unfolds, we're kickstarting issue 1 right now, but it's going to be an ongoing thing. That'll be the case. I am making sure that like the American action movie audience is kept happy, and Fabio and all of his cohorts are making sure that we get a kind of like realistic exploration of what the community is actually like. So
taking something that the community that exists and saying, okay, you have a story to tell, but I'm going to tell it in a way that can get it to a broader audience that might not know.
Yeah, in a fun, heightened way. Because there is not, there's not a war going on in the astral plane. So that is not what they brought me.
Right.
That is my Hollywood, Ridley Scott, J.J. Abrams take on it.
Right.
But everything else is authentic. The practitioners and where they're coming from and what they're exploring and how they're exploring it. That becomes very authentic, and hopefully, I like to get in, and it's like I always have like a watchmaker's kind of approach to this stuff. It's like you find a world, and you find characters that you sort of fall in love with, and then I like to kind of take them apart for a reader, and kind of show them how it all works, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really what this first issue is about, is like, okay, well, what the fuck is astral projection? What is this world like? What are these people like? What is possible? And then finally in the end, like, okay, well, what is the overall hook of this story? And so so yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing we're exploring, and that, that's what you'll find in issue 1, and I think it's a pretty damn good ride, and I think it's gonna be enjoyable. Yeah.
So
So
the Kickstarter is for issue 1, and I saw in the campaign there's variant covers, different levels, and things like that you can pledge
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff to. And you said, but this is the hopes of the Kickstarter, getting issue 1 going, and then doing a longer series, a 6-issue, a 10-issue, or whatever. Or
Yeah, we'll build it out. I mean, we have 4 planned now, and
okay,
so we'll kind of kickstart each issue. That seems to be it's how you build a good Kickstarter audience. That way, it's like your first time out. You may have I mean, my friend Charlie Stickney did a book called White Ash, which is a really great book, and if you haven't read it, you should
I need
read.
to check it out.
You should go mainline White Ash right now, and then I'll help you get Charlie on the show, because
Yeah.
he'd love to come on. But so Charlie started out a few years back. Yeah, he kickstarted 1 issue of White Ash, and then and he has since done 4 issues, or well, he just did his 5th.
Okay.
So he did 5 Kickstarters on single issues, and then he also did a hardcover. And so the first time it was White Ash #1, and then the second time it was White Ash #2, and you pick up more people every time.
Right.
And so I think his first campaign he had 200 to 300 backers. The last campaign he had like 12 to 1,500 backers and made $30,000, and it's just become a big thing. And then
Right.
since then, Scout Comics, a traditional publisher, has put it in comic shops and all that stuff. And so, I mean, the distribution model is changing so dramatically, underneath us right now. I'm trying to figure out, I mean, because what we're doing right now is not what we're going to be doing in a year or 2 years or 5 years. And so I think people like Charlie are kind of on the cutting edge of it, where it's like, okay, well, he has kind of his self distribution thing going on Kickstarter, and then he also reaches the comic shops via Scout and all that stuff. And so I am having done the traditional thing, as it is, and with the traditional thing being kind of like all stop right now, I am giving this a whirl, and I think that it's going to be very successful. But yeah, so we'll build it out that way, and yeah, as you alluded to, I mean, you guys should go check out the Kickstarter. The link should be in the comments here and everything, and on all the posts. But I mean, what excites me about it is, like, if Action Lab publishes my book and it goes to a comic shop, that's great. And that'll happen, but it's like I don't get to really like interact with the fans, the people that are buying the books, and have a firsthand experience.
Right.
I mean, I do at cons and stuff like that, and you'll still get to see me at cons, but it's like, what's the beauty of Kickstarter is like, well, whatever you want to send me, you can send me. You can just reach me through Kickstarter. And so if you have questions and concerns, and you want to tell me I'm an asshole, or the book sucks, or you want to tell me that the book's amazing, you can do that. But also, I mean, it is a personalized experience. It's like, the Kickstarter is like, it is a month-long party.
Yeah.
And so if you go on the Kickstarter page and there's something that's missing, if there's something you'd rather see, something you want to suggest, please do. And we will do our best to accommodate you. And we already have a bunch of things that we're doing to kind of include everybody. There are all these tiers. There are tiers where you can actually be drawn into the book.
Which is so cool. I saw that. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you just want to be in the background of a scene. There's that tier. If you want a speaking role, if you want to be the guy that watches like a main character blow her head off in the first couple of pages, you can be that guy. You have lines. You're interacting. You're an actor in the movie. We have tiers where if we have some great variant covers, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But if you want, we will replace our main character's head with your head on one of our covers. I mean, we have that stuff. And so again, we're trying to personalize the experience, and trying to, I could just put a book out and sell you a book, but it's like, I am trying to make this special any way and every way I can. And our variant covers are cool. I mean, you were talking about, the Aberrant Banjax covers, but it's like, we're coming out of the gate, like, shooting pretty, hard and heavy already. We have our standard cover is kind of the astral projection cover, and that's good. It's going to be an iconic image. We have our kind of sexy cover, quote unquote, and you kind of can't do a Kickstarter without doing a sexy cover. Like there's a
It's a
whole
rule. It's an unwritten rule.
well, yeah. Half the people on Kickstarter want the sexy cover, so we got
Yeah.
that. But then we have our 2 pop culture covers. We have a cover that is a take on Ice Cube's "Today Was a Good Day" video, just full of all these Easter eggs, and it's our main character kind of in the Ice Cube role, rolling through. And if you read the book, it ends up making perfect sense, because the world of astral projection allows you to kind of like go wherever you want to go. And so if you wanted to put yourself in Ice Cube's "Today Was a Good Day" video, you could.
That's so cool.
And so the conceit of the cover is, well, when our character went out to the astral plane that day, that was what he decided he wanted to do. And so here he is, rolling in that old Impala, in front of the basketball court, about to pick himself up some Fatburger. And so there's that cover, and then we also have our Ghostbusters cover, where again our main character has decided that he was gonna spend the day as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and like smash up New York City while the Ghostbusters are trying to stop him. So yeah, a lot of good stuff there. And I'm trying to think of what else we have. We have I do these from time to time. It's usually for charity. I have done these one-on-one Skype sessions with kind of like would be creators,
Yep.
would be screenwriters, all that sort of thing. And just kind of a you get an hour or whatever to kind of pick my brain about stuff, whether it's comic book how-to, or if you want me to take a look at your comic pitch, you want to a lot of times it's like, hey, how the fuck do I break in? How do I do that?
Right.
So we're doing some of those for the Kickstarter campaign. There is I have had a lot of success kind of setting up my IP, my comics, and I write fiction also. And so I have had a lot of success setting that stuff up in Hollywood. Again, we have this TV series going on with Tony Krantz, but I've also sold IP to J.J. Abrams and F. Gary Gray and Justin Lin, and have another TV series going on with Daveed Diggs. And so there is the opportunity to come on to the comic book property as a producer. So you end up being a producer in the actual book, but then you'll also be a producer on a movie or a TV series if that goes. And so just a lot of kind of like, again, we're trying to figure out how to I don't know, build a team out of this, and how to actually involve people rather than just kind of like blindly selling a book. So we're trying a lot of things. Some of them will work, some of them won't. Some of them will entice people. And again, like if the guy or gal watching this, if you look at something and you see an opportunity, you see a hole in the campaign, let us know, and we'll include it.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it looks like it's going to be just a great story. And if you guys haven't checked out any of Ryland's past stuff, do it by all means, but check out this Kickstarter. I think it's such a cool opportunity to just fans get to come alongside, and I think it makes us feel like we're a part of something. And some of those tiers like you've offered, you actually get to be a part of something that sounds like it's really cool.
Literally include you in the book.
Well, I am so thankful for your time. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. So how can people find you? I'll post stuff below. Follow along with what you're doing.
Yeah, well, Banjax and Aberrant, Aberrant are available, anywhere you're going to get comics. I mean, you can download them on Amazon or Comixology. You can order the trade paperbacks off of Amazon. But more importantly, they are available at fine comic shops everywhere. So go support your local comic shop and order through them if you can, and if you would. You can find me. I am on all forms of social media. I am at Ryland Grant. My name. I'm going to spell it because it is a weird name. You actually had to ask me how to pronounce it. Everybody else.
I just wanted to make sure.
It's not it's not an actual name. My parents went and like made up some weird name and stuck it on me. So I do not fault anybody, but it is RYLENDGRANTM. Again, I'm sure it'll be in the show notes and all that stuff. So I am on Twitter, I am on Instagram, I am on Facebook, all that stuff. So find me, friend me, follow me, all that stuff. I am if you're out there, like I said, I do a lot of kind of how-to panels at cons, and I sort of pride myself on kind of helping people get their books off the ground and stuff like that. However I can. I'm not a fucking Superman, but if I can introduce you to somebody, or
Right.
give you a couple of words of wisdom that might point you in the right direction, I'm happy to. So if you are out there and you are trying to get your book going and you have questions, if you're banging your head against the wall, reach out to me on Twitter or social media. I tend to be an open book with that stuff. So it's funny, I've been doing that for more than a few years, and now I'm starting to see the people who reached out to me 3 or 4 years ago via Twitter or after a panel or something like that. Their books are starting to come out in stores and stuff like that, and
That's gotta be so cool.
that's pretty rewarding and pretty.
Yeah.
There was this guy Omar Mora who was in one of my panels a few years back, and he kind of had this. He had like a tablet with him, and he's like, "This is my book. What do I need to do? What should I do with it?" And and whatever. I helped him out a little bit. He did 99% of the work, but at last year's San Diego Comic-Con, I was then able to have Omar on a panel on a how to get your first book published panel. So the guys who were sitting in my panels 3 years ago are now appearing at like on Comic's biggest stage with me. That's awesome. So long-winded way of saying I'm here to help. So please reach out to me if you have questions on comics and stuff like that. Other than that, you should go. It launched today. You should go look at The Jump on Kickstarter, and it's gonna be a fun party. I mean, this thing's going on for 30 days. Sooner you can contribute, the better. What a lot of people don't understand is that Kickstarter campaigns tend to live and die by the first 48 hours. If you wait to back, you can actually kill a campaign, because there are metrics taken by Kickstarter during the first 48 hours. And so based on the popularity of your campaign, the number of backers, the dollar amount that you raise in the first 48 hours, they will then categorize you as like a high priority campaign, a hot campaign, or not. And so if you do well in the first 48 hours, they will make you a project they love. They will put you in the newsletters. They will put you in front of more people. They will promote you internally. Whereas if your campaign opens up with a fart, they will not, for obvious reasons. And so the more backers we can get today and tomorrow, the better. So if you're watching this right now and you're thinking about backing, go to Kickstarter and fire it up, because it's going to help us out big time.
The link is in the video description. So click on that and seriously support it. Your work has been great, what I've read. So I can't wait for The Jump. I'm excited. I hope I'll be one of your first backers.
Please do. Please do. And tell your friends, tell your friends' friends and all that stuff. Again, trying to, come join the fucking party and let us know how we can make it better. It's a fun book. It's some of the most fun that I've had writing, and it's certainly the most fun Fabio's had drawing. And so if you like Banjax, you're going to love this thing.
Awesome. So also speaking, I said in the video description, there is a link for the Kickstarter. There also is going to be a link for the Ringo Awards, because Banjax is eligible for a Ringo Award, correct?
Yeah. I mean, it's the beauty of the Ringo Awards is that the fans have a role in determining who gets nominated. So the only way to get in front of the jury is, to have like a push from fans and everything. So if you have read Banjax and you like it, even if you haven't, and you have just liked this interview, and you're excited to read Banjax, you can hop on ringooawards.com and vote for us. There are a number of things that we are up for. Best series, best single issue for Banjax #1, favorite hero, favorite new series, and then I am up for best writer. Fabio Alves is up for best artist. Edson Ferreira is up for best colorist. HDE, which is an interesting name for a letterer, is up for best letterer. And I think Fabio's up for best cover artist also. So
That's awesome.
yeah, if you hit up my social media, I have a nice little graphic that tells you how best to support us voting wise if you are interested in doing so. And I don't know, maybe we can have that info in the comments below also.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, Ringo. Yeah, ringoawards.com. Yeah, help us out if you can. It takes 2 minutes to vote. All you need is an email address. So do
Great.
it up.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll post the link. I'll have your stuff in so people can follow along there. So make sure you guys go out and vote. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much for your time. And make sure if you guys are watching this video, click on the link below, go to the Kickstarter, support it, back it. Let's get this going right off the bat. So thank you again.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. And thank you, man. Yeah, thanks for the invite.